I'm less interested in proving to people what I know God did than I am in protecting sheep who are vulnerable.
This is a guy he's one of the leaders of, I think, James River Church. Yeah, James River Church is the name of it. He made a media splash last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure exactly when, for claiming to regrow toes. He prayed to God that this woman's missing toes would regrow, and right there in front of everybody, the toes regrew. She took her shoes and socks off, and everybody watched as they regrew right in front of him. That's what he claimed. And when called on it, naturally, he said, I have the evidence. I recorded it. I just don't want to show it to you right now. So let's talk about this guy. As it turns out, I'd never heard of James River Church before. It is an incredibly influential church. I had no idea. But the people that speak there are so integrated into evangelical culture and beliefs, you wouldn't even know it. I'll tell you about it as we get there. We'll get there. Just check this out. This is the woman whose supposed toes were supposedly amputated. Mid-March 2023. She says this.
So I had 3 toes that were amputated in a terrible accident. I heard the word for creative miracles, and I thought, well, I certainly have a creative miracle that I might need. I need 3 toes to grow back. The person next to me said, do you want new toes? And I was like, well, sure. All the women got down and they prayed over my foot, and I decided to take my shoe off to see what was happening when he said, let's see the progress or if anything's happened. And when I did.
She's just not telling the truth. Seems to me intentionally deceiving people around her to try to, bring them into the religion or make them believe that she, experienced some miracle or something? This is just garbage. She is lying to people right now. How does she justify this? There's something called an ends justify the means mentality, right? A lot of different religions have some form of this. Like Scientology has fair gaming for Scientology. Jehovah's Witnesses have theocratic warfare. The idea that you can lie, cheat, manipulate, or steal or whatever if it's in service to God, and by extension, the pastor of the church, or in Jehovah's Witnesses' case, the governing body, or in Scientology's case, David Miscavige or L. Ron Hubbard. If it's in service to them, lying, cheating, and manipulating is okay. And it seems to me that's what this woman is doing right now. She's lying, knowingly, I would guess, because they're her toes, they didn't grow back, knowingly lying in an effort to, convince people to join their church or something? Callously preying on the emotions of the emotionally vulnerable in an effort to take advantage of them. Does it get lower than this? This would be illegal if it weren't in a religious context. If she was trying to shill a new product to investors, which honestly is kind of what's happening here. She's trying to sell them something that doesn't exist so that they will invest in their church, donate to them. If this wasn't a religious context, if she's just convincing investors of something, this would be against the law and she would sit in jail for the rest of her life for defrauding people. But because it's religious, she can lie to her heart's content. Not just her either. It's the other big players. She's just a pawn in this game. We'll get to the big players in a second.
3 toes that were forming, and now there's length to them. Tonight, I can stand on my tippy toes. Listen, do you understand? I can stand on tippy toes. No, I couldn't do that because I didn't have toes to tippy on.
All right, come on, let's bless the Lord. He's Jehovah Rapha. Lord, we praise you.
So these people, like I said, you may not be familiar with this guy. Wow, he knows how to squint. This is expert squinting, right? I've been squinting my whole life, but I'm still really only like an amateur. It's just a hobby for me. I don't do it professionally. This guy looks like he's been professionally squinting his entire life. Wow. Anyway, the point here is these people are all like part of a religious movement that you may not have even heard of, but is so incredibly influential and integrated into every aspect of society. Seriously, it's crazy how well connected these people are. So this is James River Church, right? And they are connected to this guy right here, who I want to talk about next. This is Bill Johnson, and as it turns out, he is the creator, owner, the leader, anyways, of Bethel School of the Supernatural. Again, this is something you may not have heard of, but Kat Kerr helped write the curriculum for this school. Like, a lot of really high up evangelical leaders went to this school, if you will. It's not even really a school. It's just like an indoctrination camp. They went to this thing to teach them to like be ministers and be evangelical nutterbutters and stuff like that. I actually know people who escaped this school. It's basically like a compound. It's a campus that they live on 24/7, and they're groomed for leadership positions later in like ministries and you know, churches and stuff like that. So this guy leads Bethel School of the Supernatural. That means he's connected to just about every televangelist that I have ever talked about on any of my channels, like deeply connected to them. That's how influential these people are. So not only did this guy right here, who I think is the leader of the James River Church, this guy's the leader of Bethel School Supernatural. I think this guy right here, the squinter, expert squinter over here, is the leader of James River Church. Now, for what it's worth, he said that God's name is Jehovah something.
He's Jehovah Rapha.
I don't know who Rapha is, but God's name is not Jehovah. Never was, never will be. J's didn't even exist in the Old Testament. They didn't exist until the 1400s. The Tetragrammaton, the 4 letters that represent God's name, were YHWH originally. Scholars' best guess is that it was pronounced Yahweh. They didn't have vowels in the language at the time. They added vowels later, but that's a story for a different day. So let's listen to Bill Johnson here, claim to have special powers to regrow limbs and cure illnesses and all kinds of other stuff. Late March 2023. This is at James River Church. He comes out here and he says this. This is, by the way, this is the start of a serious media frenzy that overtook this church.
So I was in this, when the meeting was over, this gal came up to me, and her first words, she walks up to me, she goes, "The voice has stopped." I went, "Okay, what do you mean? Explain to me what's going on." She said, "I've had bipolar for I don't forget how many years." And her issue was there was constantly voices, and it was obviously a tormenting thing for her.
Okay, so first of all, it's disgusting to me that this guy would even suggest that he's capable of curing bipolar disorder. And second, my mom, my brother, my dad, my kid's mom, my friend growing up all had bipolar disorder. Almost everybody I've ever been close to in my entire life has had bipolar disorder. I grew up around 2 people that had bipolar disorder. So I know a lot about this condition, though I don't have it myself. I've never heard of anybody ever telling me that they have voices, like actual auditory hallucinations from bipolar disorder. Now, from my understanding, I think it's possible, but it has to be exceedingly rare. For what it's worth, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder are on the same spectrum, and auditory and visual hallucinations are a symptom of schizophrenia. So I guess it's not impossible. It's just super rare. Anyways, it's simply disgusting to me that this guy would claim to be able to, or claim to have cured bipolar disorder from somebody. Okay, go on.
She said, "The voice has stopped. What do I do?" And so,
by the way, if you're not familiar with what bipolar disorder is, it used to be called manic depressive disorder, and people go through phases of mania and depression. The length of time between each phase varies from person to person. Some people will jump from depression to mania. It's like you're on coke, is what it feels like and looks like. They'll jump between depression and a manic episode, once every 3 days. Hell, some people jump between them once a day. I mean, that's not common at all, but I've heard that's happened to some people. More commonly, I think they jump between them every, 10 days. Some people are 6 weeks. Some people are 12 months. It just kind of depends on the person. So my dad was every 6 weeks. They have this massive burst of energy. They run around. They want to spend all of their money. They burn through their savings in a day. They buy all of this stuff and they clean the house and they run around and do all this stuff, and then they crash. They fall to pieces. They're in a deep depression. They can't get out of bed for days at a time. They don't want to shower. They don't want to brush their teeth. They don't want to do anything because they're so depressed. And commonly they have periods in between where they're normal for the most part, but it can be treated with lithium. That's what bipolar disorder is. Like I said, I've never heard of anybody having hallucinations with it, but I guess it's not impossible. What is impossible is this guy claiming to be capable of curing it. That's just straight up disgusting. By the way, BPD, commonly abbreviation for borderline personality disorder. And borderline and bipolar are two different things. Don't want to confuse them.
Thing for her. She said, the voice has stopped. What do I do? And so the father then walked up moments later, and he's a retired surgeon, and he said, what do I do? What do we do now that this has happened? And it was...
Retired surgeon didn't know how to cure this person's bipolar disorder, but apparently this guy right here, Bill Johnson, leader of Bethel School of the Supernatural, can cure bipolar disorder. Something that's not curable. Something that is only treatable. This is just wrong, right? Is it just me? This is just straight up wrong.
What do we do now that this has happened? And it was like 2 weeks later, the father, he just walks up. I didn't recognize him, but he just walks up to me and he says, I have my daughter back. And the Lord had healed her of bipolar during worship.
Just disgusting, dude. A disgusting thing to say. And of course, there's no proof for any of this. Did they go to a doctor to have any of this verified? Of course they didn't. You know, all we need is a single example of proof. That's it. And instantly, you got believers all over the world. Just show us proof. Real, verifiable proof. Well, interestingly enough, there was a media frenzy surrounding this whole thing that they made all these claims. That woman claimed to have her toes regrown and everything. And that question was posed to the leader of James River Church. Late March 2023. He comes out here and addresses that question, funny enough. Listen to this.
As you know, there's been quite a furor on social media relative.
A what? A furor? A furor? Never heard that word.
As you know, there's been quite a furor on social media relative to the girl with the toes. And because her miracle is real, it's genuine. People are saying, well, if it's genuine, why aren't you doing anything with it to public?
Yeah, show us. That's it. Instant believers. That's all we need. Just show us. You have permanent believers in God. If you could just show us a little bit of evidence, I'll take anything other than personal testimony. You had cameras in the room, didn't you? Show me anything at all.
With it to publicize it.
Yeah, verifiable and repeatable, please.
Thing with it to publicize it. There's a couple of reasons that I want to say to you. First of all, I'm less interested in proving to people what I know God did than I am in protecting sheep who are vulnerable.
Okay, what do sheep have to do with any of it? What's he talking about? Sheep? I don't understand. Just prove it. I'm just looking for evidence, please. Give me evidence. Verifiable, repeatable evidence.
The news leader asked if we would comment.
News leader?
And they had followed things on social media. And I'm just going to say it as kindly as I know how to.
Okay, lay it on me, bud.
They have had a repeated history.
Who is they? Are they in the room with us right now?
Of not only a general bias against evangelical Christianity, but a targeted bias against James River.
Hey, if it's repeatable, if it's provable, it shouldn't matter who has a bias. Prove us wrong. Prove the skeptics wrong. Show us we're fools. I want to know that I'm a fool. Please, if you're right, I want to be right too. Lay it on me. You ever notice they never present the proof like this? Used to be a time when they wouldn't dare claim to regrow limbs like that. Such a brazen, ridiculous claim. Very obviously verifiable claim that, you go to the doctor and pull medical records. See, this person didn't have an arm 6 months ago. Now they do have an arm. This is objectively verifiable information. There was a time when they were not as brazen as to claim they could regrow limbs. Well, we're long past that. They know they can get people to believe anything if they claim it enough.
I just felt like, you know what? I'm not going to talk to somebody, to an agency that has a history of not being unbiased.
Okay, well, will you show it to your church? You can come out here and play the video for us. You don't have to talk to this news organization. Don't even bother. Talk to us. Talk to me. Send the data through this stream that we have going on right now. Would you be surprised to find he never sent anything out? He never tried to prove anything? It was all made up all along. And when called on that, when asked for the proof, he says, I just don't feel like it right now is all.
Biased. What I want to assure you of is it's real. It's real, it's real, it's real, it's real.
Say it enough times, you'll convince yourself of anything. I just need proof. That's it.
So it is a legitimate miracle, and, you know, we can provide the kind of proof that would be necessary. People have asked, have you seen pictures of the toes? I have. So.
Great. Show them to me. You ever noticed he never wants to show it to anybody? He just wants to tell you that he's seen it. In this age of cameras in everybody's pocket, cameras around every blade of grass practically, and you're telling me you haven't caught a single miracle on camera that we can verify and repeat?
So I've seen the picture of the toes. Let me say this, and I read your testimony tonight. Not every miracle will be validated by medical science.
Then it's not a miracle. If it's not validated by medical science, it's not real. If you're claiming to me that somebody's toes were regrown by God, and medical science says they were not regrown, that's just not a miracle. Either the toes were regrown or they were not. And honestly, right now, it seems like you're just straight up bald-faced lying to me right now. I know that you have like a PhD or something at this point in squinting. Like, this guy is, I've never seen an expert like to this level. This is truly incredible. Just, my God, dude, they're so tiny, but you can tell that they're slightly open just a little bit. Dude's an expert in at least one thing, squinting, but certainly not in miracles. Completely made up, all of it. But you know, for what it's worth, televangelists have been providing proof for a while now. This on screen here is a guy named Perry Stone. He's a televangelist. And on the right is a guy named Nick Walker. So here's why Nick Walker is notable. You've probably heard of Perry Stone because I've talked about him a few times on my channel. Nick Walker I've talked about also, but not very often. In Huntington, West Virginia, there was a revival that took place at a school. Now that's not fantastic, but I guess technically not illegal. What is illegal, though, is forcing students to attend, which is what happened. Nick Walker held revivals at multiple schools in Huntington, West Virginia area, and attendance was mandatory. They had to go. That's against the law. So that's who Nick Walker is, and he went on with Perry Stone to talk about something pretty interesting. This relates back to regrowing limbs and faith healing and stuff like that. So listen to what they had to say to each other. Late July 2021. Check this out.
So Nick, it's good to have you here.
Honored
so
to be
I
here,
want you
brother.
to share with me about two of the greatest miracles you've seen. One of these, there's actually X-rays, right?
No, it's going to be fake. He's about to tell us something completely fake.
Oh yeah, we have
You've got
scans and
scans
X-rays.
and X-rays, PET scans, the whole 9 yards.
Yes. When we baptize
No, they don't actually. It's made up. I'll get to it in a second. I can't stop myself from responding. It's made up.
When we baptized him in water, he also had a withered hand. He had nerve damage in his hand that was so bad that he could not use it. We sent Charlie the X-rays too for his hand. And then you've seen in infants how the gaps between the bones, they have to grow into those gaps, you know, and the infants will have them on top of their head and in between all the joints and growth plates. Well, this young man had gaps in between all of his knuckles, all the joints in his hands and fingers.
So he couldn't use his hand?
He could not use his hand. As he told me, he couldn't remember the last time he had moved it. And so as soon as his head come out of the water, his hand was loosed, and he began
And
to...
everybody saw this now.
Everybody saw this.
Convenient. Everybody saw this, except for a doctor, right? A doctor didn't take note of this or record the data or any of that. It was just a bunch of giga-religious nutter butters who are already primed to believe this stuff. Okay, go on.
My pastor was there, who my spiritual covering's under. He was there. Well, now this is on a Sunday. After church, he walks to the hospital, as this is relayed to me.
Fantastic. Hey, he's going to give us proof, right? We're going to get some proof for this. Okay, this is what I want. I want proof. If you give me some, I'm a believer like that. Just give me some proof, okay? Go on.
Relayed to me. He walks to the hospital, and he walks in and he says, I want rescanned. I want you to rescan me because God has healed me. Well, he said, I don't think you understand. I've been healed, and I want to have it documented. I want to know. Yes.
Great. That's what everybody needs. Proof. Okay?
So the doctor said, well, how about you let me x-ray that hand, and if your hand has any kind of difference, then we'll do the PET scan. He said, fine. He held his hand out and said, fine, do it. So they x-rayed his hand, and what they found, and this is on the before and the after that he sent me, was that the Lord had totally realigned his bones, closed the gaps, and...
Okay, so we're finally getting some evidence here, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Hemant Mehta did a reverse image search on this picture right here that they threw up as the evidence and discovered that this was from a completely unrelated scientific article that was written. Like, it wasn't even from a story about any of this stuff. It was from a scientific study where, I don't even remember what it was now, but it was from some scientific study. And Hemant Mehta called them on this in a tweet thread, posted, hey, here's the scientific article that I know you guys pulled that picture from because I just did a reverse image search on it. And when they saw that, they deleted the whole thread from Twitter. Like, they wrote a whole Twitter thread about, like, how this guy's hand was healed, and they posted that picture on it. Deleted the whole thing. Of course, when they're called on this, they back out. They pretend they never said it, or they just ignore you completely. They couldn't ignore Hemant Mehta. He's got, like, I don't know, 400,000 subbies on the twit or something like that. At a certain point, you can't ignore people yelling at you that you're lying. You have to address it. Well, they had to address this one, and their method of addressing it was deleting it completely. When they offer evidence, it is fake. Fake evidence. These people lied to their listeners' faces, and somehow they still have a ministry. This is probably, I would be comfortable saying, it's another example of theocratic warfare. People believing that lying, cheating, or manipulating is justified if it's in service to God. And what is in service to God? Anything I want it to be. Anything I do, because I'm a man of God. Anything that I do furthers God's goals. So I'm allowed to lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate as much as I want because I work for God. It's a convenient little sidestep they have set up here to allow themselves to act like scumbags and still believe that they're going to heaven at the end of it. Honestly, ridiculous.
The Lord had totally realigned his bones, closed the gaps.
Obviously, completely fake story, right? I feel I've established that completely now.
And then in other scans, which I didn't have those other scans, but in the other scans, they found that the nerve...
He didn't have any scans. None of these are from this supposed guy.
The scans, but in the other scans, they found that the nerves were actually restored, and he was able to use his hand again. And even the hand looked crooked, and then the X-rays, it shows how the Lord had put realigned his bones. And so his hand was restored.
What happened with the cancer?
So the doctor said, I've never seen anything like this.
There was no doctor. There was none of this. It was all completely made up. And of course, they retract the story when they're called on it. There should be more severe consequences for this. You know, when people lie to donors, when they fabricate stories to get them emotional and make them donate more, they can be put in jail for that, for fraud, for defrauding investors. But because it's a religion, it's protected. They use religion as a protective shield for their scams. They should be subject to government regulation. When they lie and scam people out of every penny they own, they should face consequences for it. I believe in the UK, I think, it's against the law to claim that you're capable of curing cancer if you're not actually capable of curing cancer. We need more laws like that in the US. Honestly, it should be against the law. I mean, it is already against the law to claim that some product cures something when it doesn't. like colloidal silver. Jim Baker famously claimed colloidal silver cures COVID. And oh my God, he almost got sued completely out of existence over that one. There should be more stringent, strict laws on this. Faith healing should be regulated out of existence because it's nonsense and it gets people killed, genuinely. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I think these people have no moral bottom whatsoever, and that goes for all of them. Nick Walker, Perry Stone, and James River Church and everybody at it, including Bill Johnson, this guy right here, and Kat Kerr, who is involved in other projects that Bill Johnson is involved in. And this woman with supposedly only 7 toes, and this master squinter. I hope that they all face justice for lying to people to the degree that they have. Let me know what you think about it in the comments.